People's concepts of the future have widely varied throughout history. Much of what defines the future, though, critically involves technology. We've been excited for fire, bronze tools, transportation without horses, landing on the moon, the iPhone 15, and we're still waiting for that one. Nonetheless, when it comes to being on the verge of massive technological advancements, the 1990s in particular proved to be an interesting case of preparing for the next millennium. The web was still new, the year 2000 bug was about to end the world, web pioneers that have now morphed into super mega giga corporations controlling every aspect of the internet were just getting their starts. Naturally, though, there was reason to be excited. With that optimism for technology and the sustainable, safe future presented, so came the era amicably titled the Y2K era. Year 2000, year 2K, thus Y2K. They're depicting 3D and 2D, colors are bold and fading into other colors, shapes are sharp and striking, but also soft and round. People are dancing and wearing cool clothes, new clunky phones are spinning and showing themselves off. Advertising as an art is on its fullest display. We blitzed out and had fun with it for a decade, maybe a couple decades, and then we stopped. Now the world thrives on flat, albeit complementary colors, simple depictions of humans and animals and objects, and an overall professional atmosphere. Not to say that the previous decade's paradigm of design wasn't also professional. We're dealing with simple design, minimalistic design, flat design. Both design philosophies have made money, certainly, but it brings me to wonder whether one philosophy made more money than the other, and if one made people happier than the other. But hey, we're here now, and we have this new design standard. We'll focus more on the standard when it comes to graphic design, but Y2K and simplified design each intertwine with all forms of art, be it drawn, built, sewn, furnished, animated. It's all over UI, pamphlets, and slideshows, and thrives on sheer simplicity. Well, if you find yourself to be fond of this sort of design, I have some news for you. So, alright, I've sugarcoated this so-called Y2K via pathos and praise, only really emphasizing the look and feel and movement in a few advertisements. So then, what actually makes Y2K so individualistic? Y2K first emerged in the early 1990s, giving an air of optimism for new technology in the future because, well, there's all this new technology coming out, it's new and exciting, let's advertise it all like this and make it even more exciting! Most Y2K design functions by these key components: round and sharp design, bright saturated colors, gloss and gradients, abstract shapes, blocky fonts, often somewhat illegible, I do admit, and skeuomorphic elements. Now, hold on. Skeuomorphic? Well, one important thing about the 90s is that we were still adapting to this so-called web, and to better integrate new users into interacting with it, we adopted skeuomorphism in our design, using objects and concepts from real life to illustrate the purpose of a specific element. A floppy disk for saving files, folders for directories, and software layouts imitating real equipment have mostly stood the test of time in this regard. The Wii was basically a TV with individual channels and mail and discs, and wow! Y2K lost momentum in the early 2000s as advertising norms shifted. We did have some design styles adjacent to it leading up to the big shift to simplistic design, though. Y2K ran from the mid-2000s to the early 2010s, depicting gloss, contrast, nature, the good old green and blue, and who would have guessed, technology. McBling, echoing throughout the 2000s, placed bigger emphasis on the person, specifically the person in luxury. It embodies fashion styles preceding Y2K by a decade or two and overemphasizes glitter and fancy. I think a fair way to describe Y2K is that it was emphasized by what can be real. What with the stylish poses, enhanced technology, and beloved blobjects circulating throughout the decade, we were in for a good period of technological and graphical innovation, right? That's all over now, though. So in the meantime, would anyone be up for something with less color, maybe? Perhaps the biggest association with this newer, flatter way of design is professionalism. You think of slideshow presentations, many and most, website layouts, infographics. Simple iconography, flat complementary colors, and a lack of outlines indicate this new paradigm of simplified design. Maybe throw in a 45-degree shadow if you feel inclined. Just make sure it sells. Google, Firefox, God, most apps really, and tech corps have simplified their logos and pressed their colors flat. Websites and video game consoles UI cater less to skeuomorphism because at this point you know what you're doing with the software. Is it any easier or cheaper than previous design fads? In contrast to Y2K design, I feel that it is emphasized by what is already real rather than what could be. You look at Y2K and see abstract objects, made-up futuristic tech, things you wouldn't see in the real world on a regular basis. You look at simplified design and see person, animal, object held by person, object on its own, person. Yes, Y2K featured people, animals, and objects, I won't deny that, but isn't the presentation different? Showing what people are like versus what people could be like? Remember that the appeal of design is ultimately subjective. Effort and effectiveness aren't always in proportion, even when applying supposedly scientifically attractive design principles. These sciences can fall flat for an individual simply because they have other preferences themselves. The proclaimed soulfulness of a design might not matter to someone simply because they don't like how it looks, and that's okay. Whatever your opinion on Y2K or simplified design really is, remember that the design wasn't likely projected into reality in a moment's notice by a corporation wanting money, but rather thoughtfully constructed and considered by designers and artists in and out of corporations. And if you do miss Y2K, like me, take comfort that there has been some wide resurfacing, preservation, and reclamation of the aesthetic as of late. Aesthetic playlists are making the rounds, my90stv.com retains thousands of viewable ads, shows, and music videos from the 90s and 2000s, among other eras. Neo Y2K embodies visuals with heavy reference to Y2K produced with today's technology and culture. So, would we want to go back? Purely design-wise, maybe, it's your call, but you think of all the things that were systemically wrong in the 90s and 2000s and maybe your mind has changed. It's hard to say we're holistically better off now or not, as people have both gained and lost basic liberties and institutions that rob people of their liberties persist. The state of society in the given time period is endlessly relevant to how society injects optimism and pessimism into its design philosophies, and you could see that manifest itself in the 90s. Ultimately, the form of design should be left up to the artist. I'm doing what I want with mine. Some final things to consider in this. Consider the following. Can the soulfulness of a design be measured? And if it can, is it measured by looks or effort? Have quality or effort put into designs faltered with continued corporate growth? And is enough credit being given to professional designers working under corporations? Or working independently? People can challenge and criticize current standards of design. It is up to them to be effective in their own form of design, should they pursue it.